Welcome back to another Dark Times, Dark Times in the Dark Place vlog. I've just came up with that name now, and I'm gonna stick with it. Dark Times in the Dark Place, where it's dark and the vlogs are here. Uh, I'm gonna be playing Phodep as visuals for this video, just because it's boring to have nothing to watch, and I, own all this footage, so I don't have to worry about copyright. Um, Today I'm talking about alcohol. Gets a bad rap with people who do drugs. You know, I know there's many people who are like, man, alcohol's such a bad drug. Man, just smoke weed, man. You know, those sorts of people. Or like, I only drink alcohol when I don't have access to better drugs. But alcohol is not that bad. Sure, by the general population, vastly overrated. However, that's only if you hold all drugs in equal regard, which it's not. They just aren't. For the very simple fact that alcohol is illegal, and in most places, all these other drugs are not legal, which means it's way easier to get access to alcohol, which is an important factor to consider when you're talking about a drug and comparing it to other drugs. If you sure, LSD might be great. I don't want to do LSD every single. I don't want to do LSD a few times a week. That would fuck me up. And also, uh, half the time, most people wouldn't even know where. Oh yeah, sure, it's great. MXC, amazing. I don't know. I'm never gonna be able to have it because I don't know where to get it. No one else does either. It's vanished from the face of the planet Earth, right? Whereas alcohol, pop down to the shops, buy a 6 pack of beer. It's right there. It's easy to get your hands on. There's no problem there. That's a big factor to consider. But also, like as a drug, it gets a bad rap. And it's pretty unique. Uh, I think I would compare it to like I mean, not a stimulant, like a dissociative. But it's really hard to compare to other things. It's kind of its own thing. But like alcohol and GHB are kind of their own class of drug. They're like their own thing, and, which is very interesting. That it's like its own unique thing. Uh, sure, it's bad for you. Is that really something we can consider here? Because it's not bad for you enough that it stopped people from drinking it for thousands and thousands of years, right? Like, um, every drug is bad for you. Caffeine's bad for you, only if you do it in the wrong way. It's all about responsible use. This is pretty much the key to any drug education that is like not a complete scam. Everything can be completely fine if you are aware of the whisks. If you're aware of the whisks when you're whipping it up, if you're aware of the whisks, then it's completely fine. If you know what you're doing and use it sensibly, every substance is completely fine. I've gone on record to say that things like PCP, for example, get a bad rap purely because people don't know how to use them responsibly. Uh, Generally, if you're educated about anything, it can be completely harmless, or at least the harm can be far outweighed by the benefits. As for me, with there's a lot of things like, for example, smoking weed. Right, a lot of people like to act like it's harmless. It's not harmless. Weed has 11 times more tar in it than tobacco. It's bad for your lungs, and CBD has been demonstrated to have some cancer like reducing effects, but it's not strong enough to negate dumping that much tar into your lungs on a regular basis. There was a point in my life where I used to smoke weed every day, and I started having minor psychotic symptoms with auditory hallucinations and extreme paranoia before I had to stop smoking weed. These sorts of things do happen. It's not harmless. This is the same thing with everything, right? I mean, I didn't have to complete. I mean, I had to stop smoking weed for a while, but not entirely forever. Um, oh, there's me. There's me. Uh, Alcohol. It just gets a bad rap. It's not that bad. It's not particularly euphoric, but a lot of drugs aren't particularly euphoric, and a lot of drugs that people enjoy aren't particularly euphoric. Um, Speed, for example, is actually speed's kind of speed's weird. It's euphoric, but it's not like compared to like benzos, a better example. Benzos completely not euphoric at all, but still generally considered like a good drug, despite being actually quite similar to alcohol in a lot of respects. They're not euphoric. They're quite addictive. They reduce your inhibitions even more so than alcohol. I mean, benzos are also much worse for you than alcohol, uh, and much more addictive, which is a big thing. But there's plenty of people who drink regularly for their whole lives and never become alcoholics. It's not like, if anything, there's a few studies that have shown that addiction is more genetic than anything else. If you have a history of addiction in your family, you're far more likely to also suffer from some sort of addiction. Uh, that's not surprising to me, and you should look up into it yourself, because I don't really know my shit when it comes to this. You should look into it yourself and not trust me, but that's how I understand it. Uh, it's pretty much playing a luck game. I also remember reading somewhere that 80% of happiness is genetic. I don't know how the fuck they came to that number, but there's something interesting, uh, which is also something that contributes to substance use and stuff like that. Because if you're someone who's generally satisfied with their life, there's not much of a reason for you to want to pursue alternative routes to dopamine. Whereas if you're someone who is naturally predisposed to have less satisfaction with the day-to-day living, you're more likely to pursue alternative routes to dopamine, and therefore experiment with drugs. You know, alcohol's ease of access and also a pretty useful dosing method. You just drink something that tastes alright. Like, I mean, it's nice. It's like a nice social thing, yeah, but also like relaxing ritualistic thing to have like a beer that you're sipping on, and you can very easily control the amount of alcohol you put into your body if you're smart about it. A lot of people aren't smart about it, but like, you've got all these options of strength. You got like, you can drink a beer, you can drink a glass of wine, you can drink a cider, if you can drink a spirit, you can drink Everclear. You got all these tiers, and none of them have to be bad. It all depends on what you need in the moment. As long as you like know yourself and know your limits, there's really nothing wrong with alcohol. It's pretty much a fine substance, and if anything, a good substance. And a lot of people talk about medicating with other substances, but if someone says they're self-medicating with alcohol, it's considered horrible. Like, don't do that. That's a road to addiction. Whereas something like self-medicating with weed is considered generally okay. Well, okay, weed isn't physically addicting, but it is psychologically addicting, like pretty much everything else. And if you become reliant on it for self-medication, it can cause a lot of problems. Again, I don't want to be anti-weed. I'm completely fine with people's, I couldn't be more pro-weed, but it's just a comparison that's often made because alcohol and weed are both seen as like less hard drugs because of their ease of access and relative low health detriments, which I think is stupid because every drug has low health detriments if you use it responsibly, and any drug can have can cause terrible health problems if you use it irresponsibly, as I well know. So yeah, I keep losing track of my thoughts. That'll be the alcohol, which is strangely relevant. Yeah, it's a. I've completely forgotten what I was talking about like 10 seconds ago. Um, Alcohol, something, self-medication. That was it. It can be completely really useful for anxiety, especially anxiety with other drugs, particularly weed. Alcohol and weed have a synergy. If you drink alcohol, it changes something about how your liver processes THC. I don't really know about it. You should do your own research and not trust me, but something about it like makes your liver more able to something chemical reaction, something. Either way, it literally makes you higher, and also reduces anxiety that you might get from smoking. I know a lot of people don't get that, but I definitely get that, and that's very useful. But also can reduce general anxiety, or in my case, health anxiety. It's there's nothing wrong with having a drink. I mean, most people uh accept that there's nothing wrong with having a drink now and then. That's fine. It's only if you're doing it all the time that's a problem. But in my opinion, even if you are doing it all the time, as long as you're aware that that's bad for you, and you're doing it on purpose and not out of ignorance, then what's the problem? You're making a choice with your own body. Do what you want with it. It's your choice to make. Even if someone else might think it's a bad choice, it's not really anyone else's place to tell someone what to do. I'm not saying I'm an alcoholic. Don't drink every day. Okay, that's not fair to say. Don't drink a lot every day. That's also not fair to say. Yeah, actually, that is pretty fair to say. I could be much worse, is what I'm trying to say. Uh, you know, not an alcoholic. I swear. This is making me sound awful. This is making me sound really bad. I'm really not an alcoholic. I have like maybe a few beers a night. It's not like drinking myself to death every day. Who knows what will develop into, because my family does have a history of alcoholism and heart disease, so who knows where I'm going to end up. Hopefully I don't live that long. But yeah, in conclusion, alcohol gets a bad rap by people who, uh, I guess, like, drug snobs is what you'd call them. People who feel like they're above such things, you know. It's almost like a form of classism, but with regards to drugs. People see themselves as above such things as drinking when you've reached the enlightened level of opiates or stimulants or any of these, or the psychedelics especially. Psychedelics and marijuana are the big ones. The people who are like, man, alcohol is poison. You wanna eat these mushrooms that make you throw the fuck up and have terrible diarrhea. They'll open your third eye. And again, don't have anything against any of these drugs, just the people who use them. Uh, don't be dissing on alcohol, man. It's been humanity's best friend for longer than any other drug, as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know there's some evidence of weed being smoked before. I don't know if it's before, but for a long time, and also psilocybin mushrooms being consumed for a long time. But as far as I'm aware, alcohol is the oldest psychoactive substance that is in existence. Um, yeah, man's best friend. Not necessarily man's liver's best friend, but man's best friend. Don't criticize alcohol. If you use it responsibly and just like any other drug, even heroin can be safe as long as you use it responsibly. And I'll drink to that.